Hello and welcome to the conclusion to the Civil War II series. That's right, I'm going to be putting together issues 6 through 8 in this one longer video, just for the sake of wrapping things up a little bit tighter, a little bit better, and then at the end I'm going to finally give my retrospective to the entire series as a whole. We're going to be breaking format just a little bit here. I'm only going to be doing each issue about 5 or 6 minutes in length, and we're averaging out to about a 20-minute review on this. So I'm going to go over each one in particular, letting you know of the most important plot points, what's really to go on, and what needs to be discussed. I'm not really going to dwell too much on personal opinion until the very end. I decided just to do this whole video concluding the last 3 issues because, in all honesty, nothing really happens of huge value. Sure, there's a lot of larger events going on in said issue, but nothing really that hinges the series as a whole. It feels like after this issue 5 that is, that everything kind of just slows down. And there are things that are happening, but nothing of really any huge importance, just preludes to stuff happening. And that's probably the biggest error this series has had, is that it keeps talking about the future, but the problem with this series is the fact that anything involving predictions or visions are irrelevant at this point. So, with all of that being said, we're going to get right into it and blow right through these last 3 issues. Issue 6 starts with Captain Marvel calling for a ceasefire while Spider-Man is still on the ground in shock of seeing the latest vision of Captain America being killed in his very own hands. Captain Marvel insists that Miles do the right thing, implying to go with her quietly, much to Stark's disapproval. Stark yells at Marvel, telling her that he warned her that this would happen, that even his short tenure as an Avenger should warrant much better treatment than this. Carol insists that she is not turning on him, but rather trying to help him. That she wants to protect him so the vision that everyone had just seen could never come true. Stark disagrees and the two continue to banter more until we see our other heroes finally voice their opposition to this entire feud. Captain America kneels in front of Spider-Man, asking him why he left up his mask. That he should always keep it on because of what it means and how important it is to the people he protects. Miles immediately replies that he knew what he saw in the vision and that he would never ever do it. Captain America agrees. Miles says, then, I don't know what to do now, and I just want to go home. Captain America says that he should just go home, and that they'll figure out the rest. Captain Marvel does not agree with letting him go, but is forced to watch as Thor takes him against her wishes. Maria Hill arrives on the scene to inform all of the heroes that their actions took place on government soil and is considered an act of terrorism and that they are all under arrest. Tony, of course, is very reluctant to go quietly as much as she threats. Meanwhile, we get Black Panther weighing in, saying how he doesn't know where any of this is going. That at first he was on Marvel's side, but as this tension grew, he felt that even if Captain America would let Spider-Man go, that would be the right thing to do, seeing that it was his very own right to be. He also warns her that if she were to attack him, that it would in fact be an attack on Wakanda. We then see Doctor Strange teleport Iron Man and the rest of his group away, while Marvel asks the Inhumans if they could track them, but Medusa immediately cuts her off and then leaves with her own group. Thor, mid-flight with Spider-Man, is asked to leave him on top of a building. She reluctantly wants to keep bringing him, but he insists to stay where he is. He reflects on what he saw yet again, this time through his own very eyes, and we see him collapse into tears. Back at the New Attilan, we see our Inhumans trying to talk to Ulysses, but we see that he is in some sort of energy trance and is unable to reply. Back at the battle site, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Marvel are trying to clean up the mess from their fight. Her and Star-Lord have a moment as he reminds her what they're fighting for and that he still has supporters to the cause. Back at the secret hideout, we see Stark and the rest of the team as they gather themselves. Much of them are ready to go their separate ways, but Stark is not having any of it as he chats up with Captain America just to see if there is in fact any bad blood between him and the new Spider-Man. Cap immediately insists that everything is all well and that they need to go find Spider-Man before Captain Marvel does. We see Captain Marvel is thinking about the deaths that have occurred during this entire war until she is consoled by Maria Hill, Star-Lord, and Storm. The few go over what happened and they discuss what to do next. Maria Hill states that she wishes to retest Ulysses, but is interrupted by her comm. S.H.I.E.L.D. has located Spider-Man, and yet again, on the steps of the DC Capitol building. Issue 7 begins with the Inhumans trying to communicate with Ulysses while he is still in his trance. Medusa fears that his powers are growing way more potent, that they could prove to be dangerous. We see Ulysses slip into another vision, this one of a desolate landscape that only himself is in. He immediately notices a green Hulk-like creature about to attack him until an unknown hero attacks the creature, ripping him apart in a gory fashion. Ulysses asks the man if that creature was the Hulk. The man replies that it was one of his kids, that the Hulk is gone now, that he took care of him himself. He begins to mount up on his horse, and Ulysses asks the man if he is Wolverine. The man ignores him, just saying that he'll see him around. He asks Logan what year it is, much to the shock as he tells him that he is also not supposed to be there. We cut back to the Capitol building as we see Spider-Man being surrounded by the police. They demand that he remove his mask, but of course Spider-Man refuses. Back in the vision, we see Ulysses telling Logan that he is in fact an Inhuman and he had no way of knowing how far in time he just went in. Logan tells the kid, well, I guess you missed the bus. That the Inhumans had left this planet a long time ago. Ulysses asks why they left. Logan replies, Stark happened. Back at the helicarrier, we see Captain Marvel and Maria Hill deciding on what to do next with the police as they handle Spider-Man. Hill insists that they arrest him for his own safety, but Captain Marvel firmly believes that if he can want to give himself up, it may actually be for the better. She orders the police to stand down and leave, offering to go and handle the situation herself. We then see the police and the military pack it up and leave, and it also in this moment we see that Captain America has also arrived. Ulysses wants to know what Stark did as his vision is rapidly ending. The only thing Logan tells him is that she pushed him too far, and then Ulysses is right back to where he started when the Inhumans were beginning to question him. Ulysses tells the Inhumans that they have to get a hold of Marvel, that they need to get her to stand down immediately. Back down at the Capitol building, Cap and Spider-Man talk about the vision again. Spider-Man 100% affirming that he won't kill Captain America. Cap knows this, but is still curious as to why he's there anyway. Miles tells him it's to prove that it won't happen, and thanks Steve Rogers for believing in him. They continue to talk more about why they're still there and the Inhumans' vision, both men trying to make sense of it. They are then quickly joined by Captain Marvel as she asks Spider-Man what he would do in her shoes. He quickly remarks that he would let her go. Marvel deeply wants Spider-Man to understand where she is coming from, and that Roger back her up on this. He does in fact say that she is not Satan. Hint, hint, funny, funny. But this whole thing has gone on long enough. Marvel then tells Spider-Man that they can't hope that it will all work out, and that she begs that they trust her to get him to safety. She extends a hand, but is immediately stopped by this weird energy dome surrounding Spider-Man. She immediately knows that this is Stark tech. He then crashes this whole scene in War Machine's Hulkbuster armor and immediately attacks Captain Marvel in an all-out blitz. They engage in an intense fight, and this issue ends with Captain Marvel landing a devastating energy punch on Tony Stark. Our final issue begins as the final fight had begun. Iron Man and Captain Marvel are finishing their own war. At the shield carrier, we see Hill telling Alpha Flight and everyone else not to get involved. She has her orders, and Marvel will handle this. The Inhumans contact Hill and beg her to stop fighting. The fight must stop due to the revelation Ulysses has just had, although he is not able to speak right now because he is still stuck in a trance-like state. Back at the fight, we see the two going blow for blow. Stark sending a volley of missiles at Marvel, however she does dodge them, but they do hit the ground around Captain America, sending him away in a painful way. Stark's onboard computer tells him that Roger's vitals are normal as he continues with the fight. Meanwhile, back at the New Attilan, the Inhumans are trying to communicate with Ulysses, but his trance is getting more and more powerful. Medusa still orders to grab him and teleport to the fight in order to stop the fight from continuing. We then see Maria Hill set new orders to stop the fight as we see the other heroes hurry to get to the scene on time. We get a huge spread of the fight, the Inhumans trying to get there in time. Spider-Man is still desperately trying to get out of this energy dome until Captain Marvel obliterates Stark's armor in one massive attack. Stark plummets to the ground, and Ulysses transports them all into another vision, one that they have never seen or felt this powerful. Carol asks him what he's showing us. He simply replies, "The futures." We then see several futures are shown. We see one with Karnak in the middle of some large beast war, the X-Men involved in a large war alongside the Sentinels, the same Spider-Man killing Captain America scene again, the Inhumans fighting off some synthetic alien threat, another skirmish involving Spider-Man and the Sentinels, Ultron defeating the Avengers, and finally Thor fighting Loki. Ulysses asks what's happening to him, and a mysterious voice answers that he is now one of us. And we now see this giant watcher. He tells Ulysses that he has shown the Earth all that he can, that he is now part of a greater universe, and that there is so much more to Earth if he chooses to join them. Ulysses smiles, says thank you, and then disappears. Back in the real world, we see Spider-Man holding the body of Tony Stark as everyone else looks on. We fast forward a bit as we see Carol and the Beast discussing what happened. That Ulysses, in fact, had evolved ahead of humanity. Carol not liking what she had seen, much to Beast's uncertainty. We see the two standing over a pod that is being used to monitor and keep Stark alive. She asks Beast if he's going to live. It is here we learn that Beast is not even comfortable doing any examination to Stark's body, simply because of the fact that Stark had been experimenting on himself, and even by trying to draw blood would he put his body at risk. But furthermore, that due to these experiments, it very well was the only reason that kept Stark alive. The two go on talking about what had happened, Henry McCoy insisting that Stark trusted Carol, that he fought her so that her protective measures would not be able to fall into the wrong hands, that her profiling for all the wrong reasons could lead to issues far greater than this. It is then we pan over to Hawkeye as he's watching this discussion from across the room. He tells her that he is planning to set up shop there, and no matter what happens next, that he needs her to trust him. We then see as our comic takes us to the White House as we see Captain Marvel is being debriefed by a shadowy figure in a conference room. The mysterious man congratulates Carol on ending the conflict, but is upset to learn about what happened to Ulysses, that they're unable to take the steps needed to prevent further events from happening. But nonetheless, he is still happy to be alive, and regardless of how they are viewed by the public. Going on to say, as much as they view us negatively on social media, as long as they're alive, they're more or less happy. He asks her what is to come of these heroes after this entire ordeal, and we get a large spread as our heroes as they process and move on from this whole thing. We do get a pretty impressive spots as seeing as Black Panther returning home, questioning what he does next. The Inhumans as they feel as they have pretty much learned nothing. A possible remantling of Iron Man, hence Riri Williams from issue number 7. And basically a lot of open-ended questions, which we will get into in the retrospective. The man tells Carol that she has won her prize, much to her puzzlement. He tells her that with the work she has done, that it has earned her special privileges. Our comic in series finally ends with Captain Marvel telling our mysterious stranger that she does in fact have plans for the future. So, this series as a whole. Now, I had to re-record this upon editing because my opinions have changed on the matter a little bit. But I'm going to go through the things I liked and what I disliked. The pros. The pros are that as far as writing goes, it was written fairly well. I'm not going to say it was the best Marvel story written, clearly other stories come to mind that were way better. Hell, I think even Spider-Man Dying Wish had a hell of a lot more better writing in certain parts than this. The characters were illustrated very, very nicely. I will commend Marvel on artwork. They're always on top-notch levels when it comes to these bigger event series. I did like the artwork in this series comparatively to the original Civil War series, but that's just preference. I did like the scope of the characters. I did like how some of the certain characters had a much bigger role in this, and it wasn't just one side versus the other, and other people were kind of like a subplot that were better left to the tie-ins. We did touch base on several of them. It was kind of a shame that, in my opinion, Thanos didn't make a return and just kind of like add salt to the wound that was already growing. Other positives that I can think of, an 8 comic series is actually a pretty decently timed series. The con of that, of course, is that it was delayed over 2 months, and a lot of that had to do with the people on the project, one of which needed the time to be with family to celebrate the birth of their child. But while the positives of this series are mainly, like, when the action is good, it's good. When the comedy is good, it's really good. The problem is nearly everything else. And while I did commend parts of the writing, especially when it came down to each, like, Tony Stark and Captain Marvel picking sides and why they're picking their sides, I felt like we get it. They're two very headstrong people. The problem came with the explanation and the delivery. We got the explanation, but there was too much of it. We can clearly tell after the first 2 or 3 issues that these two are going to be butting heads with each other the whole time. We didn't need to go back and forth, and that was the story's biggest problem. Tony Stark and Carol Danvers have the most annoying character back and forth of anything I have read so far. And I mean that sincerely. And I've read stuff where, you know, you'll see like kids squabbling back and forth. Hell, I think even in Brightest Day when they did squabbling back and forth, it was cut off pretty abruptly. Now, granted, the reason for it was pretty dark and grim. Go read it and you'll understand why. But if you're going to do that kind of back and forth, you have to know where to trim the fat, and Marvel did not know when to trim the fat. It was almost every single issue, it was Tony Stark, it was Carol Danvers arguing with each other non-stop. Both people were 100% completely unclear and unaccepting of each other's opinions, and these are supposed to be friends. It was very, very upsetting that it literally, with everything Tony and everyone else had been through, that it would still come to all of this. Now, granted, a lot of the characters were very reluctant to want to continue the fight after the first outing, and to that I give Marvel some credit because they knew that if they pulled the trigger, it was going to be too much. They dialed it back and they realized, okay, look at what we've done. We're reopening Pandora's box again. We don't want to do what happened the first time. We've come so far. We don't want to change that. But the rapport between the two main characters was absolutely horrible. You really didn't get a feeling of sympathy for Captain Marvel until way late in the series, which I felt was way too long. The Inhumans, in my opinion, were not well done at all. And I hear that they're actually a very well-written group, and I was looking forward at one point to getting into them because I've been told they're actually a heck of a lot more well-written than X-Men. X-Men is all explanation. I'm sorry if you're an X-Men fan, but my god, do they over-explain way too much. But in this, the Inhumans were very unlikable at times. They acted like they were like a band of brothers, and then they treated it like a monarchy, and I understand it. Medusa is like their leader, and people treat her like she's a queen. But it got to levels of supremacy at points where it's like I can understand now why this kid doesn't really want to relate to a lot of you. Ulysses as a character himself, I actually really did like. Marvel did really well with that. However, they really didn't go really deep with it. The biggest question being are they real visions or not? It is touched on in later tie-ins. Theoretically, the visions are correct to a certain degree. Like the vision of Captain America dying was not supposed to happen during Civil War, but happened much later, and that having to do with what's going on currently in Steve Rogers' Captain America. Also a really good series. I recommend going and checking that out. I might even talk about it later in the future. But as it stands right now, I was originally going to say just pass on this series, like read a quick synopsis of it and judge it for yourself. But honestly, there was a lot going on in this series, and as much as I wanted to praise it for being bad, the thing is that it wasn't so bad that you should check it out, but it was definitely not Marvel's best work. I do recommend checking it out now. If you can get each of the issues for relatively cheap, I say go ahead. I also recommend getting out issue 0, which explains the build-up to this, which I felt was really good. I also recommend getting The Oath, which was the Aftermath issue that comes after issue 8, which again also explains a lot more, and I felt was a really good conclusion, and some of the more behind-the-scenes better stuff. So as a whole, I'm going to say right now, if you're interested and you like these event comics, I recommend go check them out. I do recommend going into it with a very open mind. I am going to say you might as well just skip through the dialogue sections with Stark and Danvers. It gets really grating and obnoxious, and it's going to wear on you very, very fast. So with all that being said, I'm going to give this like a quick look at it type rating. I'm not going to say invest in it. You're better off either, just glancing over it and passing it at your local comic shop, or waiting until the trade comes out and get it then. But anyways, I just want to say thank you. I know I kind of jumped the gun, and I did the last 3 issues in one video, and I do apologize for that. The reason is I just wanted to wrap this series up. I really didn't want to plan it out over the next 3 to 4 weeks. So now that Civil War II is officially over, can move on to bigger and better projects. And as I conclude this, again, just want to thank you so much as I'm trying out this new venture in YouTube land, and I really hope you guys like it. And just, just keep reading, and you take care of yourselves.